Breaking news. Putin's military are being urged by Russia's media to attack a British warship in a scary threat. When Ukrainian soldiers attacked a Russian cruiser in Crimea, some Russians blamed Britain for the ship's demise. The HMS Diamond, an air defense-guided missile destroyer of the Royal Navy's daring class, is presently in the Red Sea, but a Russian political scientist has suggested that Russia could attack it. Yuri Baranchik, a commentator for Pravda.ru, argued that the UK should be held responsible for the loss of the Russian Novichokhovsk landing ship, and that a strong response would be appropriate. The Yemenite Houthi rebels, who have been wreaking havoc in the Red Sea for the past few months, could be involved in an indirect attack on the HMS Diamond, according to Mr. Baranchik. Russia could also be involved, according to the expert's essay published by a Putin-aligned online news outlet. Moscow might launch an assault on the ship using MiG-31s or Tu-22M2/Tu-22M2M planes equipped with Kinzhal missiles, given that Mr. Baranchik has invited Russia to attack a British warship, which may lead to a conflict between Russia and the NATO alliance, of which Britain is a member. The gravity of his request is unclear among the many Russian critics who have implicated London in the Novichokhovsk invasion by the Ukrainians is Mr. Baranchik. In late December, Ukrainian soldiers destroyed the vessel stationed in Russian-occupied Crimea. Even Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and the Kremlin publicly admitted the damage done to the large landing ship. This was a devastating blow to Vladimir Putin and his navy. Everything that has happened militarily between the Russian army and the Ukrainians since Putin's illegal invasion began cannot be attributed to Kiev. The United Kingdom and its Western allies have been providing Kiev with various forms of economic, humanitarian, and defensive military aid since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The program that trains Ukrainian military on British soil is also led by Britain, even though Britain hasn't launched any military strikes against Russia in this continuing battle. Russian commentators have claimed again and time again that London is complicit in the fight without offering any proof. Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, made the formal announcement on Monday that Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have joined the BRICS group. On January 1, Russia assumed the role of BRICS chairperson, coinciding with the announcement. A resolution passed during the BRICS summit in August 2022 in South Africa increased the number of member nations from 5 to 10. From Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, with the recent admission of Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, the group has grown to become a major player in the South Asian power dynamic. Putin stated in an official statement that the BRICS organization is drawing in more and more countries that share its principles. These principles include sovereign equality, respect for the chosen path of development, mutual consideration of interests, openness, consensus, the desire to form a multipolar international order and a fair global financial and trade system, and the pursuit of collective solutions to the top challenges of our time. Putin emphasized that Russia's 2024 BRICS chairmanship, which is centered around the theme of strengthening multilateralism for equitable global development and security, will adhere to this approach and prioritize productive collaboration with all participating nations. BRICS background. The original name BRICS, which did not include South Africa when it was coined in 2001 by Jim O'Neill of Goldman Sachs, dates back to that year. O'Neill predicted that the BRIC countries would become the world's leading economic powers by the year 2050. Formalization of the grouping by the BRIC nations followed, with the addition of South Africa to the list later in 2010. South Africa's membership in BRICS has long been questioned by critics, who point out that the country's GDP accounts for just 0.7% of the world total. Nonetheless, the assumption that South Africa will eventually stand in for all of Africa was a factor in its inclusion in the grouping, though its economy isn't exactly booming in Eskom. The state-owned monopoly energy utility cuts power outages every day. South Africa is still the most industrialized country in Africa. The BRICS meeting, which South Africa hosted last year, was well received, particularly by President Cyril Ramaphosa.